Perfect. Well, hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. I am so excited to chat with you about nutrition for marathon training for marathoners. And I want to just share a little bit about me before we get started. I am Emily Moore. I am a registered dietitian. I am a personal trainer and run coach. So I help runners with nutrition, with running, and strength training. I'm founder of the Dietitian Runner. That's my little baby, my business. And I am here in Richmond with you too. I probably run by or run with several of you. I've been on MTT for lots of years. My first two marathons were the Richmond Marathon. So I'm a marathoner as well. I love food. It's probably the reason why I became a dietitian. And I love to travel and try new cuisines and new foods. So just a little bit about me. Today I'm going to be talking to you about three areas of nutrition. So there are three areas of runner's nutrition: your mindset, your nutrition foundation, and running race nutrition. Now, your mindset, that is your relationship with food and your body, how you view food, body image. Nutrition foundation, think of that as like your daily nutrition, how you are eating, how you're hydrating on a daily basis. And then running race nutrition, that is what you're eating before, during, and after running races, race nutrition strategies, carb loading. We'll talk a little bit about each of these three areas of nutrition so that you can take a lot of these tips and begin to apply them to your training, because as you know, marathon training is no joke and it requires a lot out of your body, and nutrition will help you be able to feel good and keep up with all the training on your schedule, and then to race well as well. So starting off with mindset, these are like two huge things that I need to just put it out there right off the bat. Marathon training is not the time to restrict your eating. It is not the time to go on a diet. Marathon training is not the time to focus on intentional weight loss. You will be setting yourself up for underfueling, nutrient deficiencies. I mean, look at this whole list: muscle and bone loss. You're going to increase your injury risk significantly. You're not going to recover as well. So marathon training, we want to think of giving your body lots and lots of nutrients, and I'll definitely give you some ideas of how to go about that. So instead of focusing on restriction, let's focus on optimization. How can we add nutrients to your meals and snacks to best support your body during this time? Focusing on adding is a lot easier than focusing on taking away and subtracting. So for optimization, I want you to look at meals and snacks and think, instead of, oh, I shouldn't be eating this, I shouldn't be eating that, think of how can I put more nutrients in this? So I'll definitely, more to come on that. I'll give you some tips there. Focusing on nutrient dense foods, eating a whole variety of colors and a variety of foods. And also finding a balance between that, and I call them foods for the soul. Like, I'm a big ice cream girl. I would never work with someone that told me I had to completely give up ice cream, but it's all about balance at the end of the day. We want to focus on nutrient dense foods and then balance that out with some fun foods or foods for the soul. And a big PS, there is no such thing as perfect in nutrition. Do not strive for perfection. Putting that out there into the world. So listening to your body is a really beautiful thing. It's a great thing, but know that as runners, there are times when we still want to eat, even if we're not physically hungry. Here are some examples. Before early morning workouts for my early morning runners, which I'm assuming due to this dang heat and humidity that you're out there in the morning getting your miles in. We want to eat beforehand, even if we're not hungry, during a workout, especially your long runs. After running, after long runs, if it's been more than 4 hours since your last meal or snack, during carb loading. So those are just a few scenarios of when we want to still eat and fuel, even if we're not physically hungry for it. So I buzzed through mindset a little bit, and a lot of this presentation today is focused on nutrition foundation and run specific, race specific nutrition. So nutrition foundation is what I'm going to dive into next, and that is how you are eating and what you're drinking, your hydration on a daily basis. I'm going to teach you all about my runner's plates framework, runner snacks, macronutrients, micronutrients, hydration. So all these awesome topics we will be getting to shortly. I want to start off with runner's plates. So this is my framework. And these are really great tools to help you visually set your plate up that will align with your training. So we want your nutrition to align with your training. We don't want your nutrition down here because that's under fueling and that's not going to help you and give you energy that you need to get all that training in. As you can see, let's look at this. There's a lot on here. So let's look at that easy training plate that you'll see on the left. And they all have the same amount of parts or the same types of sections there. You'll see your grain and starch section over here. Your protein section is down here. Your color is here. And then a source of fat. I put it off to the side. It doesn't have to be off to the side. I'll give you some examples of that. So there are 4 parts there. Your grain and starch section is like your high carbohydrate part there. And really the difference between all these plates, you'll see the easy training plate, moderate training plate, and the hard training plate. The major difference that you'll see there is the grain and starch section and then the color section. So you could take a peek up to the top right if you have questions about, okay, what foods fit into color? What foods like fit into the grain or starch, protein, fat? I listed some of them out here. Fat will go into in greater detail, but I listed the heart healthy fats, unsaturated heart healthy fats here. So the easy training plate, this should be a plate that no one is following because you are all training. But just so you know, I've just put it in here so you have that knowledge. This is what you want to use when you are not in a training cycle. It's appropriate for like 20 to 30 minutes of easy effort exercise. And I know you're doing a whole lot more of that. So the easy training plate, you'll see 1/4 of that is your grain or starch. 1/4 of that is your protein. Half that plate is color, all your fruits and all your veggies, and then your source of fat. The moderate training plate here, that is appropriate for when you're in a training cycle. Think of like 30 to 60 minutes of easy effort exercise. You'll want to focus on this type of plate. Instead of filling your plate up with a fourth grain or starch, you want to fill it up with 1/3 grain or starch. And then we can cut down on color a little bit because we just want to make room for the grain or starch. And I always tell my athletes, hey, if you can eat a half a plate of color along with this, go for it. But I know when it comes to volume, it can feel like a lot for some. And then the hard training plate you'll see on the right, and that is appropriate for when you're in a training cycle. And think of that as like you're doing 60 or more minutes of easy effort exercise a day. Or maybe you're doing like 45 minutes of some speed work. I know you're doing long runs, so this would be appropriate for before or after long runs. And I don't want you to look at a single day of your training and eat and put your plate together according to that. I want you to look at the whole week. Does your week look like, and I know it looks more than this, but does your week look like it's about 30 minutes of easy effort exercise? Does it average out to be that? Moderate training plates for you. If most of your runs are over 60 minutes, the hard training plate is for you. And that's the plate to eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's a common question that I get, but we want all of our meals to look like these runners' plates here. And you might find that you'll use a mix of plates. Like I know sometimes in my training, I'm doing like less than 60-minute runs, maybe during the week, but then I'm gearing up for like my 1.5 to 2-hour long run on the weekend. So I might do a moderate training plate during the week and then that hard training plate Friday, the day before my long run. I go on my long run on Saturday morning, and then the rest of the day on Saturday, I am eating that hard training plate. And why we want to increase the grain and starch section is that carbs are your body's preferred source of fuel. Again, we'll do a deep dive into carbs, but it's your body's preferred source of fuel. If we are doing 60 or more runs, right, like you see under the hard training plate here, but we're eating an easy training plate, you are under fueling. Your eating isn't matching your activity level, and we need to bring that up so that your eating is going to really support your training better. So as you go about your training, what increases as your training and mileage increases? Your daily calorie requirements, your daily carbohydrate requirements, your daily fluid requirements. Those are the major changes and things that will change or should change significantly as you increase your training. Again, if we're down here, yet our activity is here, you're going to have low energy. You're going to hit that dang wall that I know no one likes to hit. Your recovery is not going to be as good. You're putting yourself at higher risk of injury. So some tips on how to do this, or I guess what to increase or focus on as training increases. One, using the runner's plates framework. Increasing that grain starch section, those carbohydrate rich foods on your plate, so that your eating aligns with your training. Don't be afraid of snacking. We talk about snacks as a society, and when I read things like, oh, don't snack between meals, blah, blah, blah. But you aren't a regular person. You are a marathoner. You are marathon training. Don't be afraid of snacking, because that's going to help you keep your energy up throughout the day and kind of hold, or I guess sustain you in between your meals. Another one is to be intentional about drinking more fluids, staying well hydrated, being intentional with electrolytes. So just some tips on what to focus on when your training increases. Now I have to talk about this. A note on calories. We talk about calories in such a negative way, but calories are not a negative thing. Calories, the whole definition of a calorie is a unit of energy. It's energy, and they're not bad. They're essential to keep you alive, to keep you well, to keep you out there training, feeling good, performing well. We get calories from our macronutrients. There are technically 4, but 3 are essential to runners: carbs, fat, protein, and then alcohol. So that is what is providing your body with calories. Micronutrients, we'll talk a little bit about micronutrients today: potassium, sodium, magnesium, B12, vitamin B12. All of those are beautiful and play such a great role within our body and very supportive of us, but they just don't provide us with calories. And you'll see my picture down here of that runner feeling beautifully amazing during her running. Calories will help you do that. Snacks. So we're bringing it back to snacks. As I said, snacks are beneficial for runners and marathoners. It can help you meet your high daily needs. Your body as an athlete is in high demand for nutrition, and snacks can help you meet that demand. Now, my runner snack framework, there's 2 parts to it. So I say the anatomy of a runner snack is carbohydrates and protein. So we want a carbohydrate food at that snack. We want a protein-rich food at that snack. And then you get bonus points if you can add a fruit or veggie there, which is going to give you some more fiber, some more vitamins, some more minerals. So you'll see some examples here. The first one is cottage cheese and an apple. And RX bars, like our protein-rich food in example 2, with a banana, crackers, cheese, peppers. The little packet here, I'm not sure if you have seen that at the store, but that is an RX peanut butter packet. It's about 9 grams of protein per packet. You can slather that on a rice cake. You could put some sliced strawberries on top, tuna, carrots in a wrap, and then the last one is like Greek yogurt parfait. So some ideas of snacks. And another thing to think about is you want to plan going into your week. Now, I know as a runner myself, as a marathon trainer myself, I'm training as well. And my weeks get real busy. And there's only 2 of us with our dog child. I have a dog named Brody. So I don't have to worry about kids or anything like that. And I have a lot on my plate. I can't imagine what it is like for some of you who maybe have family and kids to care for and all of that. But having a plan will help you fuel and nourish your body during your busy, busy week. I know marathon training takes up so much time, doesn't it? Out of your week and out of your weekend. So plan out some meals, plan out some snacks before you get into your busy week. Do a little prep if you can. Sometimes when I talk about meal prep, people like show me these huge eyes and they say, Emily, I don't have a half a day to go to the store and to prep and do all these things. It doesn't have to look like that. It can. If that doesn't work for all people, doesn't work for me. I'm not one of those people that plans every little thing I'm going to put in my mouth all week long, but I go into my week with a plan. I have my pantry stocked. I have my refrigerator, my freezer stocked with my meal and snack ingredients so that I can easily put them together and eat them and nourish my body. And it's also good to have some pantry essentials, I call them. So thinking about things that you can keep in your pantry, in your refrigerator, your freezer. So say, making up a random example, say that you get home from a track workout. I'm not sure if your track workouts have started already, but I think they would start soon. Say you get home late from a track workout and you're like, oh shoot, I forgot to take out the chicken for dinner and it's still frozen. And what do I have on hand that I could put into a meal? So think about some backup meal ingredients you can have in your, and I'm pointing to my kitchen over here, in your kitchen to be able to put that meal together and still eat that balanced meal when you don't have a lot of time. Here are a list of some of my go-tos, like a stir fry is super easy if you use frozen microwave rice, if you're using like frozen shelled edamame, frozen veggies. There's nothing wrong with frozen veggies, frozen fruit. They're just as nutritious. So yeah, having some things on hand can be super helpful. Hydration. Oh my gosh, this has been such a hot topic in my coaching lately with all my athletes because it is so dang hot out there. As you know, living in Virginia, hot and humid. Hydration is or should be a focus all week long. It's a huge mistake when we are just focusing on hydration the day before a long run. We want to be hydrated all throughout the week. We want to make it a goal to start our training every day while hydrated. You'll see that I listed some of the beautiful benefits of staying well hydrated. It protects with your joints and your tissues, regulates body temperature. When I learned this, I thought it was amazing. I didn't know that our muscles were 75% water. And we are using them a lot when we're out there running, right? So hydration can support our muscles and the way our muscles function. It can enhance performance. So we want to focus on that all week long. Bring your water bottle with you wherever you go and take sips all throughout the day. What counts as fluid is all fluids. And you'll see that I listed some out here. Even your like water-rich fruits and veggies, like watermelon is a huge one, oranges, and you'll see some of the things that I listed here. So all of these count as fluids. You can definitely count them. So you're probably wondering, okay, Emily, what are my daily fluid needs? Like, what should I be aiming for every day? And everyone's different. So what you could do is take your weight in pounds and chop that in half, and that's how many ounces of fluids to aim for every day. So for example, a 160-pound runner, we cut that 160 in half and we get 80 ounces a day. Now that is baseline. That is without accounting for any sweat loss, any fluid loss that you experience in sweat. So you're going to want to add to that. The general rule of thumb is to add 16 to 24 ounces of fluid to that for every pound lost during exercise. Now, I do work with some runners who the scale is very triggering to them. We don't use a scale. So if you are one of those people, don't get on the scale and trigger yourself or, think negatively or have you, with your mindset kind of be negative there. Don't get on the scale. You could just add like a water bottle or two to that. It doesn't have to be an exact thing. So just some tips for keeping well hydrated. Start sipping fluids early in the day. When you get to that coffee pot and you pour yourself a coffee, pour yourself a glass of water. Don't get up until you finish that water. And then sipping fluids all throughout the day. Don't chug. That's going to go straight through you. But just sip throughout the day. Don't wait till you're really thirsty to drink. Keeping the water bottle, like I keep this big guy by me at all times and I see it, out of my view and it reminds me to take sips. Fruit infused water, which you'll see a picture up here, is delicious. If you get sick of drinking plain water, you can even add an electrolyte packet in there. You can add some fruit in there. whatever it will take to get you to drink more fluids. Okay, so going into macronutrients. As I said, there are 3 essential macronutrients for runners, and we'll buzz through each one because I want you to know the why behind that runner's plate. Why do we want carbs on that plate? Why do we want fat? Why do we want protein? And I do want to note you need them all as a marathoner. You need carbohydrates, you need fat, you need protein. They each have a very important role. So I'm starting with carbs, and we are team carbs here. Carbs is your body's preferred source of fuel. When we eat carbs, we break it down into simple sugars. And essentially, we use that sugar for energy. We also store it as glycogen. So glycogen is a fancy word for stored carb. We store it in our liver and in our muscles. Now, the main job of the liver glycogen is to keep our blood sugar levels stable, to prevent them from dropping when we're not eating, when we're running, and we can store about 80 to 100 grams in our liver. Now, our muscle glycogen stores, I think of that as your big energy tank. And especially when we're running, when we're sleeping because we're not eating, right? We're fasting, we're going to be pulling from those energy stores to use this energy during running. So if in the muscles in our body, we can generally store 300 to 400 grams of carbs. Know, though, that those stores typically exhaust around an hour and a half to 2 hours of running, which is why we want to take in carbs during our long run. More to come on that. So just kind of an analogy that I want to share. Think of your muscle glycogen stores, like compare your body to a car, right? And your glycogen stores, that is your fuel tank, like your car tank. And we want to make sure, like our car, that our fuel stores, our glycogen stores are full, because a full tank means we're going to have energy to run. It's going to help us run longer. It's going to postpone fatigue and decrease our chances of hitting the wall. Now, I mentioned hitting the wall the other day to one of my clients, and she's like, "What's that?" So for anyone that doesn't know, like, what hitting the wall is, it's that feeling of like when you're out there and you just like can't go anymore. You're just like, it takes like every ounce of you just to like put one foot in front of the other. I've seen like horrible videos of runners who are so close to the finish line of a race and they like physically can't walk. A lot of times that goes back to nutrition, and they just are out of steam, they're out of fuel, and they don't have anything left to pull from. And our glycogen stores, that stored carb, is affected by how we eat and what we eat, how many carbs we eat. So if we look at these two guys here, the guy on the left, he has low carb intake. He's not eating enough carbohydrates. Look at how he has nothing in the tank. How is he going to run and run well? How is he going to feel good when he runs? His chances of hitting the wall are really, really high. The person on the right, they are eating plenty of carbohydrates at meals and snacks. They're meeting their daily needs. Look at how full their tank is, their glycogen stores are. He is going to do much better, feel better. This is a way to like PR and run a marathon for sure. Now, a fun fact here. Carbs is our brain's main source of fuel. The brain alone uses at least 130 grams a day of carbs. And this is what this looks like. 2 slices of bread, plus a banana, plus a cup of rice, plus a handful of pretzels. And think about it, that's only your brain. Carbs also can protect us from injury. So when we are meeting our carb needs, it preserves our lean muscle, our lean body mass. And when we exercise with low glycogen stores, we're going to have more muscle breakdown. And if we're doing that chronically over a long period of time, we're going to have muscle loss. And that can set us up for an injury. So when we eat enough carbohydrates, they can protect us from that. There are 2 different types of carbohydrates, complex and refined simple. We are not going to use the words good carbs and bad carbs. I don't believe in labeling food like that. both types of carbohydrates have a place in runner's nutrition. And there are times when I would recommend to you, hey, let's focus on refined simple carbs and let's not focus on complex carbs. An example is when we're eating right before exercise, like if we need a snack or we wake up and we have to like eat and fuel before our run in 30 minutes, refined simple carbs is the way to go. During exercise, during a carb load, that's what we want to focus on. So you'll see I listed out some foods that are high in each of these. At meals and snacks away from exercise, let's focus on complex carbs. Let's focus on those fiber-rich carbs because they are nutrient dense. They're going to help us meet our fiber needs during the day, our daily fiber needs. So, as I mentioned before, as your training and miles increase, your daily carbohydrate requirements increase. Now, if you're not someone that's into numbers, totally fine. The takeaway that I want you to get from this, and let's look at this together. So on the left-hand side, you'll see daily carb requirements, and that's grams of carbs per kilogram of body weight per day. As we go down the column, that gets bigger. On the other side in gray is exercise. As we go down the column, the duration and the intensity of exercise increases. So your takeaway from this is as I am running for longer periods of time, as my training becomes more intense, I add the speed work in, my body needs more carbohydrates. Fat. Why do we want to add fat onto that plate? Fat is used as energy. It makes hormones. Our body uses it to make hormones. We need fat actually to absorb certain vitamins. So our fat soluble vitamins, you'll see listed vitamin A, D, E, and K. Now these vitamins need fat in order to be absorbed and absorbed well. So a perk of having, let's say, avocado, our high fat food, on our plate is that it helps our body to absorb these vitamins from our food. And we also store fat as adipose tissue. So I encourage you to focus on healthy unsaturated fats. I listed some out here. This is a really great picture that I found of these unsaturated fats. Fatty fish, think of your salmon, your tuna. Those are really beneficial in helping your body to reduce inflammation, to combat oxidative stress. Omega-3s also can reduce DOMS or delayed onset muscle soreness. So have you ever done a workout and you feel fine, and then the next day you feel fine, and then it hits you and you're real sore? That's what DOMS is. And it also supports brain and muscle health. So if you're into numbers, we want to have fat be 20 to 35% of our total daily calories. Okay, protein. Protein helps us build muscle, repair muscle, so very important for recovery purposes, makes hormones and enzymes. Those are the four main roles of fat. Now, or excuse me, protein. We moved on to protein. So I think of protein as this Lego structure up here. So it's that whole structure, that's protein. Each of these little individual Lego pieces, these are called amino acids. So protein is made up of amino acids, and there's two different groups of amino acids. One is called essential amino acids, and the other is non-essential. And I think of essential amino acids are essential to eat because our bodies cannot make them. And then when we back out and look at these two, or well, there's one here on your screen, but there are actually two Lego structures or two types of protein. One is called complete and the other is incomplete. Complete sources, think of your animal products. I listed some here, some plant sources as well. Soy is a really great source of complete protein. I lost my train of thought. Okay, so those complete proteins, they contain all of those essential amino acids that our bodies can't make. Beautiful. Incomplete proteins, those are missing some of those essential amino acids. So especially for my vegan and plant-based athletes, you know, I'm not going to make you eat animal products, right? But we can aim for a variety. We can aim for a variety of plant proteins because they each have different types and amounts of these essential amino acids. So when we are eating a good variety, we're more likely to get what we need. And the daily protein requirements for runners is 1.2 to 2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day. Now, I could probably sit here for the next 3 hours talking all about nutrition, but I won't keep you here for 3 hours. And there's lots to say about micronutrients. So I'm going to share with you what I think that you need to know, but know that there's a lot more to it than this. So for micronutrients, think of that as your vitamins and your minerals. And I listed some here. These are, all of them are important, I always say, but these are especially important for runners. Very important for health, our immune system, energy, recovery, performance, hydration. And know that as a runner, as an endurance athlete, because you are one, you have higher micronutrient requirements. And that could put you at risk for certain micronutrient deficiencies. Like, for example, iron. Iron is one that we lose several ways. So that can increase our needs and put us at risk for becoming low or deficient in iron. Now, before you think about supplements, get your blood work done first. I do not recommend to take supplements, like go to the supplement aisle and take what you think you need. Don't do that because that's dangerous. Because certain, like let's say iron, if we take iron in a supplement form, which typically supplements are a higher dose, and we don't need iron, it's hard for our body to get rid of iron. Our iron in our body can reach toxic levels and cause all sorts of issues. And then you're dealing with all these issues and high iron. That's not good. So get that blood work done first to see if supplements are needed. Eating a wide variety of food, a wide variety of colors can help you meet your micronutrient requirements. Focusing on, like, for example, I'm holding, I almost said cal, but these are actually rainbow chard, I think this is. Very dark, rich, micronutrient rich. Okay, I buzzed through that. Again, I have so much to share with you and so many tips. I'm trying to share the things that I think that you need the most. But let me know if you have any questions, of course, at the end. Running nutrition, that's that third part of runner's nutrition. That is your before, during, and after run nutrition. Nutrient timing comes into play here. Fancy word for strategically timing your nutrient intake around your running to enhance performance and recovery. I'm going to dive into pre-run nutrition. We'll talk about during run nutrition and then post. And I have a sample fueling plan to share with you as well. So pre-run nutrition, the night before our run, likely the day before our run, the whole day, breakfast, lunch, dinner, we want to follow that hard training plate. Fill that sucker with half grains, half starches. You need the carbohydrates to optimize your glycogen stores so that you go into your run with optimized stores. Hydrate, focus on fluids, electrolytes. I give you some carb-rich dinner options there. During your training, it's a beautiful time to start thinking about what you want to eat before the race. I know that in November, like, seems far out, but it's really not. It will come faster than you know. And not to scare anyone here, but we want to, during training, identify a dinner that works well for you, sits well in your stomach, gives you energy. During your long run the next day, you want to start to get an idea and try out some things so that when it comes to the night before the race, you've had this dinner lots of different times during training, and all you have to do is have it one more time. The morning of a long run or a race, you want to get up with enough time to eat and then digest before you run. We want to fuel all runs, all workouts. That's the best way you can support your body. If you think about it, you're fasting all night long. Your glycogen stores are going to be a bit low and depleted in the morning time. You need that energy to do well in your training, because the better you can train, you're setting yourself up for a successful race. So support your body with training now, and of course, support your body on the race so that you can train well. We want to limit fat and fiber the closer we get to our run because fat and fiber slow digestion. So we want to actually, I have examples on this next page. I'm shifting. Okay. So let's look at this little chart here. The hour before our run, we want to focus on those low fiber carbs. Some fluids, pour yourself a glass of water, have a little bit of Gatorade or Noon Endurance or whatever, because we can easily digest them very quickly. So this is where your simple refined carbs come into play. And I listed out some examples there. What you eat before exercise depends on how long you have to digest. I am just going to put it out there that I know lots of you are probably looking at this thinking, she wants me to wake up 3 to 4 hours before a long run to eat a whole meal. Ideally, yeah, but we also want to be practical too, right? Like, I don't know about you, but I start my run at like 6. I'm not waking up at 2 or 3 in the morning to eat a meal. Like, I'm going to be real practical here. So maybe I'll wake up 2 hours beforehand to eat a larger meal and to get some carb-rich fluids like Gatorade in there. So just keep that in mind. We want to figure out a good pre-long breakfast for us that works well, gives us energy, settles in our stomach nicely, and think about doing that now and then using that as your pre-race breakfast. So see what works, play around with some different ideas and see what works. I did put some, I have this little bar here I'm moving around. I did put some ideas of some long run breakfasts here. Now know that like a banana, a waffle, know that those things might work fine if we're running less than an hour, but that's not going to cut it. Having a banana before a 15+ mile run, even a 10, right? I'd say anything over an hour, that's not going to cut it. You're not giving your body the energy or fuel that it needs. So wake up a little bit earlier if possible and try to put some more carbohydrates there, some more food there, so that you can feel good on that run. Okay, next page. During run nutrition, there are 3 key parts to this. I'm so excited to chat with you about this. I love talking about during run nutrition. There are carbohydrates, there's fluids, and there are electrolytes. I get this question all the time and I'm addressing it now. There's lots of athletes who like to use, want to use, or like the idea of using fat for fuel. It sounds really nice, right? And the body does use fat and carbohydrates for energy, for fuel. The intensity of your exercise is going to determine what type of fuel your body will prioritize. So it's not like our body uses only carbs at these times and only fat at these times. Your body will use a ratio of each. So at low intensities, think of like just like walking, sniffing the flowers, whatever. Your body will prioritize fat for fuel. At higher intensities like running, your body's going to prioritize carbs for fuel because it needs fuel and it needs fuel now to keep running, for your muscles to keep contracting. The process of converting fat to energy is slow. It's not efficient when your body's at that high demand for energy, for fuel. So that's why we want to focus on carbohydrates during running. That is key. So low fiber carbs, if we're talking food, and sugar is best. We don't need to fear sugar during running. Sugar is intentionally added into our GOOs, as you see here. It's intentionally added into your Noon Endurance, which you see, because that is easily digestible fuel for the body. We don't need to fear that. Our muscles need that to contract and need that to run. Now, why I say low fiber carbs, again, fiber slows digestion. So when you and I are sitting here, we have like blood flow to the digestive tract. It supports digestion, it supports the movement of your digestive tract. But when we're running, our muscles, our tissues are at really high demand for nutrients and for oxygen. So our body actually diverts and send some of that blood flow away from our digestive tract to our working muscles. That slows digestion. So we don't want to be eating a bunch of high fiber carbs because that's going to further slow digestion. And I guarantee it will not feel good. So two different options to think about: food and sports products. I listed some examples here. Now on the course is GU that's offered at miles 14 and 21 and Noon Endurance. It's going to be at every water station every 2 miles until mile 20 and then every mile after that. And then junk food stops. I wrote be cautious because I will tell you a story about when I ran the Richmond Marathon. It was my first marathon ever. And it almost landed me in the porta potty. So junk food stops, great, like loaded with all these sugar options, right? And I just said, sugar is a really great source of fuel for the body during running. So little did I know, I'm running along the route and I'm like, oh, this is good. Like, I am tired. I think it was like mile 22. I am so tired. I could use a little, like, pick. I can't remember what I grabbed, but I grabbed 2 things and I ate them, and it was the bad choice. So if you're thinking about like having gummies, like Swedish fish, candy, that sort of thing, practice it during your training. Get your body used to it. So not to, because those are fun, right? Those junk food stops are fun, but just be cautious. And don't try anything new for the first time on race day. That is like a huge thing. I have lived and learned since then, thank goodness. Start practicing with the fuel that you're going to use during training now. If you're going to take GU on that course, practice with that during training. If you're going to take Noon Endurance on that course, practice it now. Most people don't have, and like Sports Backers is amazing, right? For like giving us all the stops, and we can stop for water and food and this Noon Endurance. A lot of marathon trainers don't have the luxury of that during their training. So take advantage of that. Have the noon and get your body used to that now. So here are sports guidelines for carbohydrates during running. You are going to fall within this category here. So the fueling guidelines depend on the duration of exercise. Runners will say like, oh, Emily, I'm running 8 miles. How long do I fuel with? And how many carbs do I fuel with per hour? And my question always is, how long is that going to take you? So it's based on time, and you want to aim for 60 to 90 or more grams of carbs an hour. You want to include carbs in your fluids. It actually helps with fluid absorption, but it's a really great way to help you reach that goal. I put this note here. When our carb intake is over 60, which hopefully yours will be, we want to choose a blend of carb types. There's different types of those sugars. So some examples are like maltodextrin, fructose, glucose. We want to choose and we'll look at this together. We'll look at GU together because I'll show you an example of this. But we want to choose a blend because on our small intestine, where we're absorbing these sugars, sits these different transporters. And like our glucose transporter can only handle 60 grams of carbs an hour. So if we're only taking in glucose and we're like at 70, 75, 80 grams of carbs an hour, that's like oversaturating that transporter. That can cause GI issues. So we want to break it up into a few different types of carbs. Again, practice now and slowly build to goal. Use the same products that you will on race day. It would be a really good idea to see, like, evaluate how many GUs are you having an hour? How many sips of Noon Endurance are you having an hour? What does your carb intake look like now? And make a plan to slowly increase that. Fluids. We want to stay hydrated out there. And I know it is freaking hot out there and humid. And our goal of taking in fluids during running is to not lose any more than 2% of our body weight. When losses get to be above 2%, performance declines. Greater than 2% is dehydration. Fatigue, headaches, nausea, vomiting. I listed all these things out here. Those are signs of dehydration. Consequences of being dehydrated, our body temperature increases. We're putting ourselves at higher risk for heat stroke and other related illnesses. We put more strain on our cardiovascular system. And remember those precious glycogen stores that we have hopefully optimized before a long run? we'll be using more of those more quickly. So how much fluid to aim for is based on the runner. It's based on sweat rate, which is how much your individual body loses in sweat per hour, the environment. So right now your fluid needs might be greater than it is come November. Cross my fingers for you. I know it was hot last year. The average sweat rate for athletes is about 1 liter of sweat per hour. That surprises a lot of people. I've definitely had a few athletes I'm working with right now. Their losses are double that, about 2 liters an hour. And I've seen even higher. So here are sports guidelines for fluids. When we're running less than an hour, not necessary, but look at what's outside. I take fluids with me on all runs now. Like if I'll run 30 easy minutes, which I'll do tomorrow morning, I'm bringing a water bottle. I mean, I know I'm a heavy sweater and I need that extra fluid. I like to take sips as I go. So these are general guidelines, but individualize it to you. Now for running over an hour, we want to aim for 14 to 27 ounces per hour. We want to add electrolytes in there. We'll talk about that next. We want to add carbs in there as well. Be proactive with your fluid intake. You want to hit that goal of 14 to 27 ounces that first hour. You want to start sipping 10 to 15 minutes into the run. We do not want to wait till we're thirsty, especially in this environment in which we're running. You want to practice your fluids now and slowly build up to your goal. Again, using the same products, using the same gear to carry. I wrote my New York City race prep and now I forgot what I was going to say. Gosh darn it. Oh, I know what I was going to say. So last year I trained with MTT, but I was actually training for the New York City Marathon and I didn't run Richmond. And Richmond Marathon lets you wear hydration vests. New York City Marathon does not. And I ran all my previous marathons with a hydration vest. So I had to pivot and I, thank goodness, researched and found this out early enough, even before I started training. And I changed what I was going to bring. I brought a handheld water bottle because they allowed those. And I had my electrolytes in that. And then I relied on what was on the course as well. So just a story about that. Using weight to evaluate your hydration is a good place to start. Remember that I said if you lose greater than 2% of your weight during running, that's dehydration. Again, I don't know if I said this before, but it's not true body weight. You're not losing true body weight during that run. It's all fluid. So by weighing yourself before and after can be a helpful way to calculate what that change is to know if your losses are real high or if they're minimal. Now, the scale is not appropriate for everyone. I don't use a scale with all my athletes because it could be a trigger. Again, if it's a trigger to you, please staff the scale. There's other ways, which I'll share with you in a sec. So if you weigh yourself, and I would encourage you to do this multiple times and get like an average. So if you weigh yourself and you find that you continue to lose greater than 2% of your body weight, you need to increase your fluid intake during running. If you gain weight, it means you're overhydrating and your fluid intake is greater than your losses. I'd cut back on your fluid intake because there is such thing as too much fluids during running. We'll talk about hyponatremia in a sec. So here's an example. I just put an example down here. A person is 175 pounds pre-run, 169 post-run. That's 3.4%, and this is dehydration. There is an athlete that I used to work with, and we found she wasn't feeling good on her runs. We found she was losing 3 to 4% of her body weight regularly. So we increased her fluids. We made a plan for it, and she felt much better. Electrolytes, last but not least, just like fluid loss or fluid needs, loss and needs of electrolytes is individual to you. Sodium in particular can be significantly different among athletes. So the electrolytes we lose in our sweat, you'll see in this picture here, sodium, chloride, potassium, magnesium, and calcium. Now we will lose a higher amount of sodium, chloride, and potassium smaller amounts of magnesium and calcium. They all play a role and they're all important. So what do the sports nutrition guidelines say? Putting electrolytes in our fluids or taking them isn't necessary if we run less than an hour. Again, know your body. Every run I run, I'm putting electrolytes in there because of how much I sweat and lose. When you're running over an hour, we definitely want to take in electrolytes. There is a very specific recommendation for sodium. We want to take in 300 to 600 or more milligrams of sodium per hour of running. Thank goodness our Noon hydration that is available on the course is a very good source of sodium and other electrolytes. So ways to add electrolytes, I just said that. Carb-rich powder, Noon Endurance, higher electrolyte gels. Huma Plus is a very high electrolyte gel. I want to say, and don't quote me on this, but there is 240 milligrams of sodium per packet. The regular Huma is 100, so it's more than double. Salt stick, I know salt stick is very popular. Another way, they have chews, they have capsules that you just swallow. And know that the more you sweat, the more electrolytes you'll lose in your sweat. Okay, so coming back to hyponatremia, that fancy word I spit out a few minutes ago. Exercise-associated hyponatremia is something that I really want you to be aware of as an athlete. That is when your blood sodium concentration drops too low. Over drinking, especially of dilute fluids like water, and high sodium sweat loss are contributing factors to hyponatremia. So that's why we want to put electrolytes in there. We want to put sodium in there as well in your fluids or electrolyte caps or however you want to take that. Symptoms of hyponatremia: nausea, vomiting, headaches, weakness, lethargy, seizures. I mean, death, not to scare you, but it's like nothing to mess around with. I've experienced hyponatremia. I don't have the blood work to prove it, but I've felt all these symptoms and it's horrible. Taking in electrolytes and knowing my individual electrolyte sweat composition and loss was key to fixing that, which I will share with you in a sec. Signs that you're a salty sweater. Does this look familiar? Have you ever seen your skin or felt your skin, all those salt crystals? That is all sodium loss or salt loss. If you wear a hat, check out the inside brim of your hat. Is it white? All salt loss. With stains on clothes, all salt loss. These are signs that you are a salty sweater, meaning you lose a high amount of sodium through your sweat. So I shared with you a lot of the general sports nutrition guidelines. If you want to get specific with it, here's how to do it. Carbohydrate requirements, I already shared that with you. We can get very specific with fluid and electrolytes. So identifying your sweat rate could be a way to do it. Your sweat rate is the amount of fluid your body loses per hour. That's going to change in different conditions and seasons. I'm sure you notice that you sweat differently now than maybe you will in the wintertime. How we do this is we weigh ourselves before exercise with no clothes on. We don't want that weight. We want to weigh ourselves after exercise with no clothes on. We don't want the weight of sweaty clothes. Keep track of the fluid we're taking in during exercise, and there's lots of different sweat rate calculators. Gatorade is one of them, but it's very cool to see or to get more data on your individual body and then be able to plan your fluids accordingly. A non-weight way to do this is through a sweat test. I feel like I'm losing my voice here. Hopefully it hangs on for a little longer. So a sweat test will provide you with your sweat rate, but also provides you with your electrolyte sweat concentration. So how much like sodium you're losing per liter of sweat, chloride, potassium. And that can, knowing your losses can help you then build out a plan, an electrolyte plan that will help you replenish. Now, here are a few examples of sweat tests. So H-drop, it's what I'm wearing. This was the Ashland half last year. I was probably dying in this picture, even though I don't look like I'm dying too much, but I was dying here basically. But I'm wearing my H strap because was testing. I wore this like all throughout training last year because I wanted to get an average of my sweat loss and know my electrolytes so that I can adjust my plan for the New York City Marathon last year. It's cool. It connects to your phone. It's reusable. And then Levlin, they are another brand. They will send you 2 patches in the mail. You put it on, you go out for your run, you follow their instructions to seal it and ship it back. And then they send you an email with the breakdown of everything that you need to know. They're not reusable, but they do send you 2. Okay, this is one of my favorite parts of today. So here is a sample marathon race nutrition plan. I am using what's available on the course. So I'm using GU here and I'm using Noon Endurance. Again, GU will be available 2 packets on the course, but know that that's not going to be enough to fuel your marathon. You need to bring more nutrition with you. Or else, how are you going to meet that hourly goal, right? So GU and then Noon Endurance, it's every water station it will be available, every 2 miles until mile 20, and then every mile after. Now, the cups on the course, those are generally filled with about 4 to 5 ounces of fluid. I put the nutrition labels here for your GU. So if we look at GU, we see 1 packet or 1 gel is 22 grams of carbs. We see that it is also 60 milligrams of sodium. And then it has some potassium in there, some calcium as well. Now, remember what I said earlier about how if we are fueling above 60 grams of carbs an hour, we want to aim for a blend. And this, I circled these in red here to show you that this is a blend, maltodextrin and fructose. So we do have a nice blend of carbohydrates types. And over here we have Noon Endurance. 1 scoop of that is, where's my carbs? 16 grams of carbs and 380 milligrams of sodium. We want to mix, like per their mixing instructions, 1 scoop with 16 ounces of water. There's some other really good source of potassium too. There's some other really great electrolytes there. So here is me building your nutrition plan, or a sample nutrition plan. So taking in 2 gels an hour will give us 44 grams of carbs an hour and 120 milligrams of sodium. Taking 4 Noon cups on course will give us about 20 ounces of fluid an hour. In that, like combining all 4 cups, we're getting about in 1.25-ish scoops of Noon. So within that, we're getting 20 grams an hour of carbs and we're getting 470 milligrams of sodium, which is excellent. So you'll see my total nutrition here. I'm within that 60 to 90 gram mark, beautiful here. I'm within that 300 to 600 milligram of sodium an hour mark here. And then I'm within that range for fluid intake here. Now, here's how we want to go about that. We want to take our first gel 30 minutes into the race, take our second gel 60 minutes into the race, and continue on at 30-minute increments throughout the entire race. We want to stop at each water station. Our goal is going to be 4 cups of Noon. So we want to take, based on, in the beginning especially, they're offered every 2 miles. So we want to take 1 cup at the water stations, at each of the water stations. Hold on, what the heck? Is 4 cups Noon, so take 1 cup at water. Oh, I left some things out. Okay, let me tell you. So we want to take, the goal is 4 cups of Noon an hour. So we want to take 1 cup at water stations 1, 2, and 3, and then 2. I'm messing up, aren't I? Hold on a sec. 1, 2. So we want to get in that total of 4 cups an hour. So you can break that up however you want. You can take 2 cups here. You can take 1 cup there. You can also bring an additional handheld bottle or a vest if you need additional fluids in between. I like to have fluids. I like to be able to sip whenever I want. So I'm always bringing fluids with me. And it could be a good idea. If you're looking to get higher in your carb intake, which it's very possible, and I would encourage you to not stop at 60 grams of carbs an hour, but to go up 290 if possible. We can take more Nuun cups. We can add another gel in there. We can add, if we're like, nope, don't want to add more gels, let's add some like gummies or blocks in there. So just some ideas of how to increase further. Hopefully that was helpful to go over that. Gear options, lots of options. Vests, handhelds, belts. This is a spy belt that you could store fuel in. I always store, excuse me, I'm losing my voice. 1 sec, I'm gonna take a sip of water. You can store gels in your pockets. You can store salt sticks in your pocket. So like I always run, these are Sanita. Sanita is my favorite brand of running shorts. I get the ones with pockets, and I definitely stuff those with all my gels. Some sports bras have pockets, but think about what you're going to do marathon day and practice that during training. I feel like I sound like a broken record, but practice is important. Post-run nutrition, and then I want to touch a little bit on carb loading. We can't really dive deep into that today because of the time, but hang on there for a few more minutes with me. Recovery nutrition is really important. Your body needs nutrients in order to recover. We can't expect our body to recover well if we're not giving it the nutrients and the nutrition that it needs to repair and recover. We want to be intentional with our nutrition after exercise. I always tell runners, like, hey, your workout's not done until you have something to eat. That's a really important part of your workout. If we wait hours and hours and hours after running without eating, you're not helping your recovery. You're delaying your recovery. You might have an inadequate recovery and not feel very recovered for your next training plan. So afterwards, if we can go get that runner's plate, go get that runner's plate. Have that full meal. If we need to start with a snack, go for a snack. In that snack, let's put carbs in there. Let's put protein. Let's put fluids and electrolytes. Carbs, we want to take those, or we want to eat those foods, excuse me, because that's going to help our muscles recover. That's going to help to replenish those glycogen stores that are going to be depleted after a long run or race. Now, I'm going to back it up a little bit. Post-run nutrition or recovery nutrition is appropriate for all distances, all workouts. So I mentioned that after a long run, your glycogen stores are going to be a bit depleted, and they will be after any type of workout that you're going to be using or digging into them in one degree or another. So carbohydrates will help you replenish. Protein for tissue and muscle recovery, and then fluids and electrolytes to replenish the fluids and electrolytes that you've lost in your sweat. Now we always forget about food, I feel like, and we always think of the supplements, but electrolytes can be replaced through supplements and food. And here are some examples. Salty nuts, salty pretzels, pickles. I drink pickle juice after my long runs because I love it. And you might think I'm crazy, but it is good. And I know some runners will do that as well. But it's a way that I'm replacing my sodium, so that counts and works. And then you'll see potassium-rich foods, magnesium-rich foods, and calcium-rich foods as well. I need to talk to you about this because it is so common, and I have this conversation, and we make all these strategies for eating when we have a poor appetite. I do this all the time with my athletes because it's a common thing. It's hard to get in nutrition and to eat when we don't have an appetite. I'm sure you can relate to that. Focusing on nutrient-rich liquids is probably going to be a lot easier to take in that nutrition as opposed to eating like a full meal or solid food. Think of smoothies. Make a smoothie. Sip on that. You don't have to chug a lug it all at once, but you can sip on that, throughout your hour or however long you need. Protein drinks, electrolyte drinks, soups, bone broth is a really high source of protein. Don't be afraid to have small snacks, to graze throughout the day, and then you have that meal when you're ready. Something to note as well, because runners come to me and think that they have issues, or it's not right, or they did something wrong. when they're really hungry the next day. And it's okay. Your body is hungry that next day because maybe it missed out on a little bit of nutrition when you didn't have a good appetite. And it's just asking you for some more food, for some more nutrients. So let's honor that. It's not like you're messing up or anything like that. But honor that hunger. And if you're extra hungry, put some extra snacks in there. Give your body the nutrition that it needs. Okay, a very, very quick note on carb loading. We want to carb load for marathons. I can't dive into this today because I could talk about carb loading and examples. And I should make a blog post on this, but I do have some carb loading information on my Instagram page, which I'll share with you at the end. But what you need to know is that we want to carb load because we want to optimize those glycogen stores so we go into the race with full stores that we can pull from. Carb loading improves endurance performance by 2 to 3%. It extends the duration of steady state exercise by 20%. It postpones fatigue. So we want to carb load for marathons 3 days, the 3 days leading up to the race, at rates of 8 to 10 grams of carbs per kilogram of body weight per day. We want to focus on low fiber carbs. Simple refined carbs are the best type to focus on when we carb load, because we're really increasing your carb intake during carb loading. We don't want to be really increasing your complex carb intake because that's a lot of fiber. It's not going to feel good. There's such thing as too much fiber. Carb-rich fluids, juice, Gatorade, Liquid IV, Endurance, Scratch Labs, Tailwind, all really great carb-rich fluids that can help you meet that daily goal. Carb loading is not intuitive. You're going to have to eat when you don't feel like eating, but think of it as helping you race well. If you need any help or have any questions, please let me know. Okay, one more slide and then I'm done. I can't not talk about this, so I'm going to talk about this. Of other really important factors outside of nutrition to be focusing on, sleep. Please prioritize your sleep. Your body is going to spend a lot of its time recovering when you're sleeping. We want to get close to 8 hours if possible. Take at least one full rest day a week. We're not strength training on rest days. We're not cross training on rest days. We are resting and letting our bodies be. We ask so much of it every single day when we train. Let your body be and let it recover. Stress management. So when we are experiencing the stress of training, then we have really a lot of stress in our lives, work, home, whatever. Double stress is not good. That's going to potentially lead to an injury, can lead to an illness. Nothing good is going to come of that. Okay, those are my last 2 cents on that. And just before I take questions, if you're interested in getting help with your nutrition, please let me know. I have lots of different programs and things that I offer, different resources to help you with your nutrition. You can contact me via email. That's the fastest and best way to get a hold of me. I spelled that right? Yep. There's my Instagram. I post daily tips. I post stories. I'm on there every single day. So you can get more tips that way. I have a website. So please feel free to reach out to me if you need me. I am here for you. I'm a marathoner just like you, and I get it. We all have our struggles. It's nothing to be embarrassed of. But if you need help, let me know. Should we do questions?
And
Should I look in here, Mara?
Yeah, Aaron has one in the chat. As the blood work for standard physical provides the information we need to know about micronutrient deficiencies, is there an additional test we should request from our doctor?
I think that's a good starting spot, to be honest. It depends. I mean, there's lots of different types of labs that the doctor can order. We have like our basic panel, we have our comprehensive panel. Iron is like an iron panel is something that we want to request. I request for endurance athletes, if we can test labs twice a year, great. If we can only do it once a year, let's do it once a year. But since we're at risk for certain vitamin and mineral deficiencies, I would recommend at least once. So you could start there. You could see if your doctor can order additional labs like an iron panel. Vitamin D is really important to know. That's an additional lab that can be added. I'm not sure if anyone has heard of Inside Tracker. Inside Tracker has they have multiple packages, but they have a very comprehensive panel. The one that I did recently was like 43 different labs. It showed me my inflammatory group, inflammatory markers, blood sugar, liver health, like lots of great things. So you could start there. Yep. I think that if you wanted to get blood work done by your doctor, then go for it and see if they'll order an iron panel and a vitamin D.
You all are more than welcome to come off mute to ask any questions, but if anyone puts
Oh,
them in the
yeah.
chat, I will read it. But Jen asks, this may be silly or obvious, but when calculating our sweat rate, if we're taking in hydration, fuel before our run, should we weigh ourselves after that or before running?
I can't imagine you'd have a lot right before you go for your run. So like have your normal breakfast, drink your normal things, and then right before you run, like before you're ready to go out, weigh yourself. Again, we don't want the weight of clothes, and then go out for your run. Come if you can come home and not pee, and then weigh yourself. That would be really great. And then do what you got to do.
Hi, I had a quick question.
What's your question?
Do you ever do talks with like school teams or anything? I'm a cross country coach and I've got a lot of kids on my team that I think could really benefit from like an abbreviated version of like the talk that you just gave.
Mhm.
I was curious if that's something that that you ever do, and if so, I can email you.
Please shoot me an email. Yeah, I would love to chat about that. I do nutrition clinics and talks for lots of different groups, running teams. So yeah, contact me and then we'll chat.
Great, thank you.
Good. What's your name?
Elizabeth. Elizabeth
Okay.
Hatfield.
Okay, I'll look out in my inbox for you.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Emily? All right, well, you all have her email address, her Instagram, her website. It's all also on the MTT page. So once this recording is posted, it'll also be posted on the clinics page. Emily, thank you so much. This was great, and I hope everyone enjoyed it.
Thanks for having me. I know it was so fun. Good. Let me know if you need anything. I'm here for you. So good. I'll talk to you later.